wider viewing and listening public of Trinidad and Tobago, members of the media. Good morning. I am here as usual to just give you an update on what the government has been doing. No need to recap since the 30th of January to protect us, the population here in Trinidad and Tobago. Today I'd specifically deal with our borders. As you are aware, from the 23rd of March, midnight on the 22nd of March, we shut our country's borders to both nationals and non-nationals. And the management of that exercise has been done by the Ministry of National Security in consultation with the Ministry of Health and the Honourable Prime Minister over time to time. One of the aspects that we've had to manage very carefully, because it's a whole of government, is also our energy sector. So in the management of the energy sector, I have been having conversations with the heads of our upstream gas suppliers, EOG, BHP, Shell and BPTT, over the period of time. Unfortunately for Trinidad and Tobago, our gas production has continued unabated. There's been no dip in our production. This is not by VAPS. This was not by fluke, as we say in Trinidad, but it was through careful management of a number of things, including working along with national security. You see, you have persons working on offshore rigs, both nationals and non-nationals. So immediately on the 23rd of March, I began engaging with the heads of these offshore upstream companies to understand what was happening. The first process of our management was to ask them to keep staff on the rigs, because of course they were safe on the rigs, there was no viral infection on the rigs, to keep their staff on the rigs for a little longer than the normal rotation, because this is a fluid process and it's all about management of time and how we manage persons moving to and fro. Fortunately, all of the companies did so. They manage the logistics of their staff on offshore rigs. A lot of the staff on these rigs are foreign nationals, non-nationals as we call them here in Trinidad and Tobago. So for the first stage, we got them to stay on board for a little longer than they would usually. What we then did in the second phase of management is for the incoming crews, we asked that they bring them in via marine vessels, because that would take some time across the waters. It would give us some time to monitor, to pass the 14, the 21 days of them being quarantined on these ships once nobody presented. What we then did is allow those ships to come in. No one was allowed to disembark. So these rigs, in some instances, as well as supply vessels, came in via sea after crossing 21 days. We didn't allow them to disembark. We cleared them and sent them straight out to the rigs. So with the new crews going out to the rigs without coming on land in Trinidad and Tobago, we then took the replacement crews that they were taking, the non-nationals off. And then, of course, one of the conditions was, well, we don't want the non-nationals staying here in Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, the non-nationals also wanted to return. So we granted permission and had a seamless exercise on a number of occasions for these non-nationals to be taken off of the rigs, brought in via supply vessels to Chagaramas or other areas. As soon as they docked, the companies working along with us had sanitized buses and took them straight to Piarco. Of course, as they arrived at Piarco, we had everything in place with customs, immigration, civil aviation, and on some airport authorities. And what we then did is allow them to board craft that had been chartered to get them back to where it is they needed to go. This is part of the country's management, not only of its borders, but of our all-important, essential energy sector. I'm happy to say by working along with the upstream companies and others, this has been a seamless project. So persons began circulating questions regarding chartered aircraft that would have come in over the weekend. Let me just give the population the assurance that no one was allowed to disembark any of those aircraft. That is one of our preconditions. Even when there were repatriation requests by foreign governments, Canada, the United States, Germany and other EU countries, there was always a very strict stipulation that no one would be allowed to disembark the aircraft coming into Trinidad and Tobago as one of our management exercises of protecting the population here. So we've also had cargo planes coming over the whole period of time. Over the weekend, we had a cargo plane bringing in very essential oil and gas equipment. And we continuously, on a weekly basis, have cargo plane moving stuff, not only in the CARICOM region, but also internationally to ensure we get goods into Trinidad. Of course, mischief is afoot, and there's a suggestion that we allowed aircraft, private aircraft chartered planes to come in to bring certain people into Trinidad and Tobago. I say here without any fear of contradiction, that is absolutely untrue, false, and simply based completely in disinformation and on some occasions misinformation to achieve mischief. What happened, we've also had over the weekend, so I can give you the last, let's say from Friday gone, the French military had been requesting overpass flights. We allowed those as they did because they have some dependencies, French Suriname, etc. We allowed those. The US military also made a request over the weekend to fly 2 aircraft in to collect persons in South America and persons in Trinidad, military persons and Americans at the embassy, and to take them back out of Trinidad. So of course those were permitted, again with the stipulation and condition that always applies: no one would be allowed to disembark. What you saw with these private aircraft over the weekend, there were 5 charter flights that came in on Saturday as part of a very, very carefully planned operation where 62 non-nationals who were working on the rigs, who had stayed on longer than because we had asked them to help us to manage the COVID and the movement of people in Trinidad and Tobago. They were brought in via a marine vessel, taken straight on sanitized buses up to Piarco and staggered 5 charter flights, including, I think, 1 or 2 flights to the Netherlands, because this was an operation where some of the workers were based in the Netherlands. So that is what those charter flights were about. There is nothing untoward about it, and it continues. So even this weekend on Saturday, I had my normal Zoom meeting with the heads of EOG, BP, Shell, and BPTT and BHP to plan the way forward over the next few months. And we're working along with Minister Dial Singh's ministry, the Chief Medical Officer, to ensure that as best as can be, we're keeping to all of the international protocols. Of course, these energy companies already have their international protocols with the quarantining of staff, and it's been going very well and seamlessly. So that is all that those flights were about. I'd also like the opportunity to address the issue of our nationals in Suriname. I have been, as you know, in constant contact with the attorneys at law. We are going to grant the permission for them now to come to Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, when they get to Trinidad and Tobago, of their own accord, they will, as you've seen happen with the 33 nationals who returned from Barbados, they will be subject to the Chief Medical Officer and his professional staff, and they will be quarantined. There's no doubt about that. Of course, that group is slightly different to the 33 in Barbados, who are all together as one group. These nationals, and this morning I had another company reach out with some workers down in Suriname, they are now all mixed. So that presents a different scenario, but the government is allowing them of their own accord to make their way back here. And when they arrive here, they will be quarantined by the Chief Medical Officer and his staff as part of our management of our country's borders. On the border control, I'd like to say that we've continued from a national security perspective. We have been using our various technologies as well as our hard personnel, both our Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard, the police service, immigration and customs. This morning, once again, early hours of this morning, we picked up, I think it's either 2 or 3 Trinidad and Tobago nationals who had crossed the border, went to Venezuela, were coming back, caught them with a huge amount of fish and shrimp, of course, in complete contravention of not only our COVID regulations by crossing the border without permission, but also the Customs Act. So these operations continue to take place. Last week we had another introduction with the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard, where we had some Venezuelans come across. And just for the population to know what we're dealing with, they actually had their vessel prepared that when we interdicted them and they threw stuff overboard, they pulled a plug, literally a plug, on the vessel for the vessel to sink. We worked along with the Venezuelan authorities, and they were taken by the Venezuelan authorities into legal custody and taken back into Venezuela to be charged as they should be. So I give you the assurance that we continue to work tirelessly and with all of our effort to continue to protect our borders, not only with respect to the COVID regulations, but also generally speaking. And it gives me the opportunity to just say thank you to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, or immigration workers, Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, or fire services who have been working overtime as well, or prison services, customs and excise. It's been a pleasure for national security to work along with the Ministry of Health personnel in getting a number of facilities operational. They've done a fabulous job, and in less than 72 hours turning around the home of football as well as the Day Bay campus, and we're moving on to some other facilities now. And to all frontline personnel for doing a magnificent job in helping us to protect Trinidad and Tobago over the past few weeks. I can't forget the social services workers, including the NGOs, who are helping us to reach out and provide for our citizens in the meantime. This is all part of a very carefully managed number of plans and measures by the government of Trinidad and Tobago to protect us, the population here in Trinidad and Tobago. So, as Minister Dial Singh said, as the Prime Minister said on Saturday, we continue just for a few more weeks as we go into a different phase and stage. Stay home, stay safe, stay alive. Thank you very much, Minister Cox.
Thank you very much.